simile simile การเปรียบเทียบการอุปมาอุปไมยตอนแรกอ่าน simile simile ต้องอ่าน simile simile To continue reading this reading out loud is to learn and improve English reading skill and to educate the Buddha's teaching via the Buddhadasa Bhikkhu's book titled Handbook for Mankind. And maybe read unclear or not correct pronunciation or stretch on each word. By the way, I try my best to read out loud based on myself, learning background and my own accent. Let's get started. Page number 117. The criteria for recognizing these four levels in the supramundane plane are the various mental impurities which are in the course of being eliminated. The Buddha divided the impurities in this group into 10 kinds. He called them the fetters. These 10 fetters bind man and all beings to the world, keeping people in the mundane plane. If a person starts to cut through these fetters and break loose, his mind gradually and progressively becomes freed from the worldly condition. And when he manages to cut through them completely, his mind becomes completely free, transcends the world for good, and comes to dwell permanently in the supramundane plane. Of these 10 kinds of subtle mental impurities that bind us, the first is the self-belief, the view that the body and mind is myself. It is a misunderstanding or misconception based on clinging to the idea I am. Because the average person is not aware of the true nature of the body and the mind, he unthinkingly regards these two as his self. He assumes that body and mind is his self, his I. This instinctive idea that there is an I and a mind is so firmly ingrained that normally nobody ever doubts their existence. True, the self-instinct is what makes life possible, being the basis of self-preservation, the search for food and propagation of species. But in this case, what we are calling the self-belief is to taken only in its most basic sense as the root cause of the selfishness. This is considered to be the birth of the fetus, to be done away with before anything else. The second factor is doubt, the cause of wavering and uncertainty. Most importantly, it is doubt concerning the practice leading to liberation from suffering. Doubt due to inadequate knowledge. Doubt as to what this subject is really all about. Doubt as to whether this practice for breaking free from suffering is really the right things for one, whether one is really capable of carrying it through, whether it is really better than other things, whether or not it really does any good, whether the Buddha really did attain enlightenment, whether he really did achieve revelation from suffering, whether the Buddha's teaching and the practical method based on his teaching really do lead to liberation from suffering, whether it is really possible for a bhikkhu in the Sangha to attain liberation from suffering. The root cause of hesitancy is ignorance, a fish that has always lived in the water. If told about life on dry land, would be sure to believe none of it, or at most only half of it. It immersed as we are in sensuality, are as habituated to sensuality as is the fish to water, so that when someone speaks of transcending sensuality, transcending the world we can't understand, and that which we can understand to some extent, we are hesitant about. It is natural for us to think on this lower level. To think on the high level produces a new picture. The conflict between the high level thinking and the low level thinking is what constitutes wavering. If mental energy is insufficient, the low level thinking will triumph. Doubt and wavering with regard to goodness is something chronically present in everyone right from birth. in a person who has been brought up wrongly. It may be a very common complaint. We have to introspect and note the bad consequences of this reverence, which is present to such an extent in our work and our everyday living that we become skeptical about goodness, truth, and liberation from suffering. The third factor is superstition or attachment to rules and rituals based on a misunderstanding of their real purpose. Essentially, it is a misguided attachment to certain things one does. Usually it has to do with doctrines or ceremonies. An example of this is belief in magic or magical practices, which is blatantly judge superstition and occurs even among Buddhists practice based on the belief that it will produce magical abilities, psychic powers, and protective forces is founded on false hopes and is irrational. Another example is the undertaking of moral precepts, 5 precepts, ศีล 5, etc., or virtuous conduct. The real purpose of this is to eliminate mental defilements. But if we believe that it will give rise to miraculous powers, which we shall then be able to use to eradicate the defilements, we are in fact grasping and clinging, and so defeating our original purpose. The practice is quite correct in itself, but if we misunderstand it and cling to it irrationally, regarding it as something magical or sacred, then it becomes pure superstition, even taking up on oneself the moral precepts, if done in the belief that it will lead to rebirth as a celestial being, is without a doubt an example of attachment to rules and rituals, and goes contrary to Buddhist aims. Such beliefs contaminate otherwise virtuous conduct. The objective of the Buddhist discipline is the elimination of the cruder defilements of body and speech as a foundation for the progressive development of concentration and insight. The objective is not liberty in heaven. To have such false motives is to soil and contaminate one's own morals with grasping and clinging with the false ideas, charity, or adherence, adherence to moral precepts or meditation practice. If carried out with a mistaken idea of their true objective, inevitably will stray from the Buddhist path. To understand that even Buddhist practice associated with misunderstanding, because craving has come in and taken over, bringing the expectation of mystical powers becomes superstition instead. This applies to even the very small and trivial things that most of us like to indulge in, such as ritual chanting. Most of us like to indulge 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 indulgence indulge 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 แปลว่ายอมตามยอมให้ทำในสิ่งที่ชอบ indulge in indulge in indulge indulge ตัวอยู่ในภาษาอังกฤษส่วนใหญ่จะเป็นไม่หันอากาศ indulge indulge in such as ritual chanting, merit making, and the like. The ceremony of practice, right? The ceremony of placing rice and trays of sweets before the Buddha's image is performed in the belief that it is an offering to the Buddha's spirit, and that he will able to partake of it is 100% certain to produce effects precisely the opposite of what the devotee is hoping for. Behavior that defeats its own true purpose is generally quite common in Buddhist circles. It is foolish and irrational and results in practices originally worthwhile and attractive becoming contaminated with the stupidity and ignorance of the people performing them. This is what is meant by superstition, as we can see. This defilement has its origins in delusion and misunderstanding. Most of us have our own ingrown, ingrown beliefs in mystical powers as a result of having been misinformed and led astray by others. We need not go into any more detail here, but though it may be rather disturbing, everyone ought to do some critical self-examination along these lines. When these first three defilements, namely self-belief, doubt, and superstition, have been completely given up, one is said to have attained the lowest level in the supramundane plane, that is, to have become a stream enterer, to give up to the bun. To give up completely these three defilements is not difficult at all, because they are just primitive qualities possessed by primitive, underdeveloped people. In anyone who has studied will and made progress, these three elements should not be present, and if they are, then that person's mind should be considered still primitive. Anyone ought to be able to give up these three defilements and become an Aryan. If he can't, he is still a foolish and deluded person, or to use the best term, a worldling, someone with a thick, dry fold covering the eye of insight. When any individual has managed to give up these defilements, his mind is free from bondage to the world. These three are ignorance and delusion, obscuring the truth, and are fetters binding the mind to the world. Giving them up is like rendering ineffective three kinds of bondage, or three blindfolds, then sleeping free, rising above and beyond the world into the first supramundane level. This is what it is to become an Aryan of the first degree, to attain the first level in the supramundane plane. Such an individual is called a stream enterer, one who has attained for the first time the stream that flows on to nirvana. In other words, an individual at this stage is attained to attain nirvana, at some time in the future. What he has attained in only the stream of nirvana, not nirvana itself. This stream is cause that flows right on to nirvana. In clinging towards nirvana, just as the water course of a river slopes down towards the sea, though it may still take some time. A mind which has once entered the stream is certain to achieve nirvana eventually. Attaining the second level in the supramundane plane implies giving up the three fetters just mentioned, and further, being able to attenuate certain types of craving, aversion, and delusion to such a degree that the mind becomes elevated and only very feebly attached to sensuality. It is traditionally held that an individual who achieves this level will return to this world at most only once more. Hence, he is known as a once returner. A once returner is closer to nirvana than a swimmer enterer. There remaining to him no more than a trace of worldliness. Should he return to the sensual human world, he will do so not more than once, because craving, aversion, and delusion, though not completely eliminated, have become exceedingly attenuated. The third stage is that of the never return anakami. This grade of Arion, besides having succeeded in giving up the defilements to the extent necessarily for becoming a once returner, has also managed to give up the fourth and fifth fetters. The fourth fetter is sensual desire. And the fifth is ill will. Neither the stream enterer nor the once returner has completely given up sensual desire. In order to them, there is still a remnant of satisfaction in allowing undesirable objects, even though they have managed to give up self-belief, doubt, and superstition. They are still unable to relinquish completely their attachment to sensuality, of which some traces remain, but an early young. At the third stage, a never returner has succeeded in giving it up completely, so that not a trace remains. The defilement called ill view, which includes all feelings of anger or resentment, has been watched out to a large extent by the once returner, so that there remains only a trace of ill humor to obstruct his mind. But the never returner has got rid of it to get altogether. Thus, the never returner has thrown off both sensual desire and ill will. This sensual desire or attachment to an satisfaction in sensuality was explained adequately in the section on sensual attachment. It is a chronic refinement, firmly fixed in the mind as if it were a very part of it, of the same substance. For the ordinary man, it is hard to understand and hard to eradicate. Anything at all can serve as an object for desire. Colors and shapes, sounds, odors, tastes, and tactile objects of any sort, kind, and description. These are sensual objects, common, and the state of sensual attachment, which takes the form of satisfaction in this desirable objects. The sensual desire, kamaraka. What we call ill will is until 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, until the page number 123 of 136. The rest of 10 and 3 pages may be complete or reading about Handbook for Mankind by today. Thank you so much for reading. Thank you so much for reading together. Have a happy time all day, all night, all the time.